it's so good to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Lindsay. Good morning, your time.
Good morning. I'll introduce myself. I'm Lindsay Carnett. I'm the CEO and president of Marketing Maven. We're a bi-coastal full-service communications agency with offices in New York City and Los Angeles. We are representing clients in B2B, B2C, and B2G, business to government types of businesses, and also working in lifestyle, consumer, healthcare, a variety of verticals. We're doing public relations and social media marketing, influencer marketing, and market research. And I'm happy to be here today because so much has changed after the pandemic. And Lori, why don't you give your introduction as well?
Sure. Thanks so much, Lindsay. I'm based in Dubai. I'm a lifelong New Yorker who moved to Dubai in 2015 to become the retail head of marketing for one of the big groups here. I've been in retail my entire career. Now I'm the global director of Burns Communication Group, which is based in New York. Our clients are primarily B2B and some B2C, but we work a lot with the CEOs and different founders of new companies and disruptive tech that's changing really the way retail works all over the world. And I'm really excited to be here today.
I know we're going to be talking a lot about personal branding, and a lot of people think of a business as a brand and get kind of awkward when they think of themselves as a brand. But personal branding today, I think, is more important than ever based on, I looked you up on LinkedIn and you looked me up on LinkedIn, and you might have Googled my name, I might have Googled your name, and that's just the way that business works today. So it's not just about online dating and seeing if you can find information about the person you're going on a date with. This is really doing business and doing it right. So how should we be rethinking our personal brand after a global pandemic? Because I know there have been career shifts for different people, and people are really trying to come out and say who they are today, which might be different than 2 years ago.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that when you think about all of the different avenues that we have to promote our own brand, whether it's on LinkedIn, as you said earlier, or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of these social media platforms, it goes so far beyond what there used to be with people, which was essentially a resume. And now there's so much that can be found online about everyone that lives a normal life in the world. And I think that what we found with the pandemic, for sure, at least I did, it seems that everybody really had so much time on their hands to think about who they were and what their values really, or how their values really impacted the way they lived and the way that they changed their lives based on their values and their jobs. And I think, especially in the United States, we're seeing with the Great Resignation, it's not just all because people decided they liked being at home over the pandemic. It's because they decided that they don't want to do what what they were doing doesn't represent their personal brand. And I think that is a very interesting moment in our history right now. And I'm very intrigued by all of it to see where it leads us to.
It's also interesting, you mentioned TikTok earlier, and some people might make the brand decision to be on TikTok or not to be on TikTok because it is such an entertainment-rich platform. And I've seen a lot of real estate agents on TikTok promoting their different properties and open houses, et cetera, in a very entertaining way. I've even seen some therapists, some friends of mine from college are on TikTok, and that's also a really big judgment decision. Like, what social media platforms do you even want to be on? And what type of content do you want to be sharing as your personal brand? Because, a lot of times, yes, there is reputation management, but with the internet, a lot of times that stuff doesn't go away.
Well, that's what I find so interesting about some of the things that I see on different social media platforms, because I think about, I know that people think that you shouldn't look at a social media platform to make a decision based, to decide, for instance, if you're hiring someone. But I think that, it's hard to erase some bad judgments in the world, which we've seen a lot of this year in the whole cancel culture and people going back, and even before the pandemic with Me Too and a few other things that we were seeing, people going back and finding tweets that people had put out that they thought were derogatory towards people in the world that they then lost their jobs because of. So I think we everybody needs to realize this doesn't go away. Even if they say it goes away, it doesn't fully go away. And I think before you go and do a shuffle dance on TikTok, you might want to think about whether that really represents your personal brand or not. But I do think what's really interesting is how people are using it to really show a different side of themselves in a way that is really relevant to what they do. To your point, the real estate brokers, or I think I've heard, I haven't seen that many of them, but plastic surgeons, I think, are doing really well on TikTok. And I think that's just, I really applaud people who can take a platform and make it work for them in a professional way, using it for what it's meant to be, which is entertainment. And I think it's, are you on TikTok?
I'm
Lindsay?
not. I've chosen not to do TikTok for myself. I'm a LinkedIn creator, not a TikTok creator, but we are definitely working with TikTok influencers on behalf of brands. Sure. But also advising brands that say, I want a TikTok profile, to say, okay, think about what type of content are you actually going to put on there? Or do you want to take TikTok influencer content and then leverage it on other social platforms where you're really already strong as a brand and can convert sales, et cetera?
Yeah, I agree. I think you really have to think long and hard about it. I did think there's a really great, I mean, it's very interesting. The Uffizi gallery in Florence is on TikTok and has been for a couple of years. And they do such clever stuff with art and music, contemporary music with old art. And I find it really, I think, like I said, I think it's really interesting when someone can do something very brand, just totally on brand, but with that particular platform. So I applaud you for editing your, knowing where your lane is and doing a really great job on it. I thought your LinkedIn profile was fantastic. And you post a lot on LinkedIn, which I am more on Instagram than LinkedIn, and I enjoy content on Instagram a lot. And I find it's a great creative outlet. And a lot of my past was in fashion. So it's a similar, a lot of people, it's a more creative, I'd say, platform in that respect.
Yeah.
But I still think long and hard before I post something.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely important to think long and hard before you post something, to your point. I want to transition our conversation a little bit into public relations, because we talked about people with PR blunders in 2020 and 2021. It's just a matter of who's next in 2022 and how are they going to address the situation. I recommend always setting up a Google alert for your name. And also for names and people in your company, names and people of your clients, et cetera. We obviously have tracking tools that are far more sophisticated than Google Alerts in the PR world, as you do as well. But just for the people listening, it's free to do, and it would definitely make a lot of sense. What sort of PR tips do you have for some of the people that are watching?
Well, I think what we talked about earlier is it doesn't go away, and I think that if you really are, the CEO of or an important member of a company that is publicly traded, for instance, or one that's going out for funding, if you're a very exciting new company and you're going into a Series C or Series D before going public, and you come out with a tweet that makes people think twice about investing in you, or they decide to sell your stock. And I mean, as much as I love Elon Musk, and he's someone that I think, and we can talk about this later, but people who have a very defined personal brand, I think that he's really at the top of the list. But his personal brand is that he doesn't seem to care who he offends, or it used to be what rules he was breaking with the SEC. And I think that, that those are the kinds of things that you have to think about. How does this affect the millions of people who are investing in my company, or hundreds of thousands, or however many people it is? So I just think that you really have to think about what you're going to post. And if you have any doubts at all, you should have a sounding board and you should review it with them. And it should be somebody with a cooler, calmer head than yours, so that you don't completely destroy your reputation or your company's for that matter.
Back in the day, we used to say, don't drink and tweet. So I think one rule of thumb is don't post while you're inebriated. I think just as a
good one.
Good
yes,
rule
exactly.
of thumb.
And also don't be so reactionary. You know, some people are so quick to just get on Twitter and post something, you know, because it just fires off in the minute. You know, I really think in a lot of cases, you know, there should be a cooling off period. I think you should wait, you know, a couple hours and see what that tweet still looks like, or that post, if it really still is something that should go out into the world. And if you want it to have the same message, because I think a lot of times just, you know, you wait an hour for something and your mind totally changes, or you calm down, or you see things differently, or someone's called you to tell you that information is no longer accurate. So I think waiting is also a very good piece of advice to give to clients.
That's the same advice that we would have if you get an email and you're upset about it, and that you wouldn't just be so reactionary, that you sit on it, think about it, read it again, and then maybe send it the next day. And so I completely agree, because maybe that person would have had the time to then go explain whatever their reaction was, or I actually meant this, or whatever the case may be. And so to just add fuel to the fire to get exposure from it isn't always the best strategy. And ultimately, if you are the person contributing such negative content, you have that negative word cloud around your name. When we're doing market research on a person or a brand, we are looking at sentiment and doing a sentiment analysis of positive, negative, neutral sentiment. And if somebody is commenting just on negative topics all the time, they are going to have this negative tone attached to their voice. And that digital footprint, like we were talking about, doesn't go away. It would take a lot of work with very positive articles, with very positive press releases, to try and get that content to turn from negative to positive in terms
Absolutely.
of sentiment. So let's shift the conversation a little bit, talking about how your personal brand can help give you a compassionate approach to your business. So maybe humanizing a company. So that way we can talk about, you know, practicing what you preach in terms of how you represent yourself as a brand, and you know, not just you as Lori and me as Lindsay, but, you know, how does Burns Communications Group humanize itself, or how does Marketing Maven humanize itself, or how are you doing this for some of your clients, perhaps through?
I think I heard the rest of you. I was going to say, tell me how you do it, but I'll give you really just quick, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But one of the things that we do to humanize Burns Communication Group, we have different social media posts about different members of the team, what they like to do to volunteer, or what they, you know, what their favorite book is, or how they like to start their day. But also we do similar types of activities, or recommend them for our clients as well. And for instance, if a client, of which we have many, are very supportive of women in fundraising, for instance, we have a group called the Deal Makers, which is Deal Make Hers with an H. And they're women who are CEOs or have closed significant deals. And for Black History Month, our Deal Makers call was on Black women fundraisers who've raised over $1 million. And I think the number is there are 94 in the world with Black women who have raised $1 million or more, which is, you know, scary and sad and shocking all at the same time. But we had several of them on our Deal Makers call and talked about how they really prepare, and how they handle, you know, really going after money, which is they know from the beginning that it's hard as a woman, and as a Black woman, it's even harder. So I think having these kind of conversations that are very open and frank really puts a nice, you know, it gives women information. It gives other women information to see how people are handling these kinds of situations. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about it with our clients and in our social media profiles as well. So we can be helping to spread information that helps people in terms of these cases. How do you handle it?
Well, for us, I mean, we just did something about National Love Your Pet Day. And so all of us got to post pictures of our pets, and, you know, that was our social content. So we're also focusing on female Black founders too for Black History Month. And so we are focused on, people making an impact. And I think that really speaks to the heart of, it can tap into our heartstrings a little bit among different audiences. So I think, with our clients, we are encouraging them, like we have a cybersecurity client, and so we're focusing on women in STEM. And so we worked with the National Women's Business Council, and with an organization like that, there are also opportunities to highlight some successes and some challenges from different women-owned businesses. So yeah, a similar approach, definitely. So to highlight and give a voice to those that wouldn't otherwise have a voice, I think social media is great for that. And to have people get to know you a little bit better. In terms of humanizing a brand too, I mean, I would look at Reese Witherspoon as a really good example. She posts a lot of personal content. It's not like what she's eating for breakfast, but it is more like her interactions with her kids or with her dog or something like that, where you can feel like the person, but she's also promoting her fashion line too. So it is really equally done. It's nicely done. It does humanize her as a brand, but it also humanizes her actual fashion line itself, and makes the audience feel like they know her. But it's not totally everything about her. It's just, enough that she wants to share. It's almost like arm's length away. And sometimes that's a really good thing, is to stay arm's length away, especially on social media.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think that, you brought up a really interesting point about, she's humanizing, she's promoting her brand, but she's doing it in an authentic way that is not commercial and is not, really a hard sell. And I think that, that is a real art. And I think that authenticity is one of the keys, the key drivers of personal brand image, because people want to know if you really are that person. And I think the more you can show them, but to your point, especially if you're a celebrity, at arm's length, so that they're not, seeing your breakfast, which I think is ridiculous. But it really gives them a personality that I think helps people withstand storms sometimes in there. If there is something difficult that comes up, that they have an easier time of managing their reputation. Going back to what you said earlier about the negative sentiment, if you're just a cranky person all the time on social media, or you're constantly upset about something, you're not going to have that same love or same kind of people rooting for you that they would for someone like Reese Witherspoon, who's giving very positive content, but authentic, and doing it in a way that resonates for her brand.
Yeah, I think, in terms of helping build credibility and trust, something to be said for trust tying in with credibility. And we are able to measure that. We do sentiment analyses, like I mentioned, and positive sentiment can be associated with trust. And brands that are trusted typically have a higher conversion rate in terms of online sales, just from an e-commerce perspective. So if you had a brand with really negative sentiment, then their conversion rate is probably going to be a lot lower than one with a high positive sentiment. So I think that would get to our question about, what is the bottom line for a business? Why does it make so much sense to spend so much effort on social media content and your digital footprint? And what is this actually buying you besides clout? Does this actually impact your bottom line? What's the ROI? And so I think it is longevity, like we talked about, staying power if something were to happen. Now I've been through a recession, I've been through a pandemic. And so, to treat employees well and, be flexible and, practice what we preach and all of those things, I think just speak for themselves, but they also give you staying power too. And to come out and still be educated, still be learning, and still be proactive. That says a lot about a brand. And ultimately, whether you're a business and it's tied to employees, or whether you're an e-commerce brand and you're trying to generate more conversions online, everything that we're talking about right now really plays a part in it. I'm curious of your opinion too, even from a retail perspective.
Well, one of my clients has recently done similar to what you do, a survey, a report on sustainability, and it was a generational report that really that they had also done 2 years ago. It wasn't longitudinal; they hadn't done it like monthly, but they did it 2 years ago. Came back and asked the same questions. And it was all about sustainable shopping and sustainable products. And what we found is that the Gen Z, or Gen Z, as they say in my part of the world, generation has outsized influence on their Gen X parents when it comes to sustainability for retail. And now, when 2 years ago, it was such an insignificant number of older demographics that were shopping resale or concerned about sustainable shopping, it's more than 50% across the board. And it's all because of Gen Z that is really driving this conversation. And we know that it's just going to become more important in retail to really live to live your values, because the Gen Z generation is not putting money where it doesn't believe it should go. And that's going to become more and more evident as they become more and more powerful with more money, the older they get and the more money that they make. And by 2031, they're supposed to surpass millennials in terms of their pocketbook, in terms of the amount of money that they make and spend. So that's not even 10 years away, it's 9 years away. And so retailers and brands really need to understand that the voice of customers and the consumer is something that they need to take into consideration across all of their channels, their PR, their blogs, their social media, because people are paying attention and people are not buying from brands that they do not believe in their values or their ethos.
We've been seeing the same, just in terms of ESG. We have clients in the financial space, in the cleaning space. One client with 1,800 employees that does infection prevention in massive hospitals. And part of their protocol is, even to get the hospital contracts, they have to make sure that they are using suppliers that have ESG plans. I just did a survey for a university student last week to get Marketing Maven's ESG score, which I'm still trying to find out what that is. Like what ours is. I'm really excited to know. And one of the questions was, do you use suppliers that you have reviewed their ESG policies? And so that is a new thing that's going to be looked at. So to your point, yes, it's important for consumers today. It's important for those generations, but now it's going to be part of the B2B community too, in terms of what's your ESG policy? Almost the same thing as, how are you protecting my data? What's your privacy policy for cybersecurity purposes? It's going to be, what is your ESG policy? And can we take a look at it before we sign you on as a supplier for our company?
That's very interesting. And I think, you're right. That's just going to become another one of those boxes that you have to check off and say, yes, we have a really great ESG policy and we live it. And that's the thing, because of social media, and because if you've got a brand image of being this, amazing place for women to work.
It's almost like the shock jock factor back in the day with radio. You think of Howard Stern. Yeah. Like, what happens when somebody says this? You're just doing it to get a reaction, and then it just boils up. I feel like Kanye's like that a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Just provoke, and antagonize, and then there's going to be some big reaction, and then it becomes newsworthy. And a lot of celebrities do that to stay relevant too. And so that's not necessarily the advice that I would give to a business owner or somebody in business. I think you don't want to seem that erratic. But right. I think, just to look at people that have done it well and not done it well, and the persona that you want to embody, I think is very important. What about a few takeaways that you would have for everybody listening?
I think that you need to, I think what we started off talking about, I think you should find the social media platform that speaks to your brand the most. I mean, I just don't think people can be on everything. I think influencers can. I think they can and can do a great job across multiple platforms because that's their job. I think a regular person who has a career and wants to be taken seriously in life, I think they need to really think about the content that they're posting. And you know, I don't think that, you know, if you're a female who wants to get ahead in life, I don't really think that, you know, bikini shots of you having a party all the time in Mykonos is a really great way to get ahead. And I know women who do it, and I think that's great. But I think that if you're starting out and that's your kind of persona, I think that can be hard for people to take you seriously. And I think that you need to really think about what you are saying to the world about who you are and how you want to be perceived. And if you want to be perceived as someone who's brilliant and a great businesswoman, I think that's the kind of content that you need to be creating.
I would agree. I mean, in terms of persona, yes, think about what social profiles, but also think about what some of your career objectives are too. So, you know, if you're looking on LinkedIn, even things about what groups do you want to be a part of? Because, you know, if you're in crypto and you're in fashion and you're in, you know, finance and you're in XYZ, you know, some of those play well together. And if you have one totally in left field, it might not play as well together. So think about what type of thought leadership you want to be in and who you want to have as connections too. So they're definitely, I mean, I would almost look at this as kind of like you know, you remember the board game called Risk, and you go into different countries and you strategically pick, okay, I'm going to go into this one next and this one next and this one next. And there should be a strategy behind where do you want to start out and where do you want to get to and who do you need to connect with, and you know, even who should you be following on Twitter, because and who should you be following on Instagram, because people look at who you're following, what type of comments you like. I mean, on my LinkedIn profile, you can see what I liked before, what I commented on, and actually what I said. So that's kind of scary sometimes, because if I, you know, were a total troll and just, you know, said mean stuff to people on their LinkedIn profiles and, you know, did that in my spare time, that would look very poorly on my personal brand, that like, wow, I should probably not connect with her because she's probably going to be mean to me. So, you know, that's the total opposite of, you know, the thought leadership that you want to put forth. And also, how much are you posting your own content versus just curated content, sharing other people's content? I see so many Facebook and Instagram feeds now that are using somebody else's content, just putting it out there. Then I think, can this person actually think for themselves? So I think that's a trend right now too.
I guess my closing remarks are that it doesn't go away. Think about what you're posting before you post it, and really think about how you want to be perceived in the world, and make people see you that way. So if you want to be serious, be serious. If you want to be funny, have funny content. But I don't think that, you know, if you're serious and all of a sudden you're posting funny content, people would be, what is this all about? So I say, come, you know, decide how you want to be, decide who you are, be authentic, and try to communicate that in the nicest, best light possible.
And to piggyback off of that, my closing remark would be, look at the data, because it's going to tell you a lot. And data could be as small as, what is my engagement percentage? How many followers do I have versus how many people liked this post versus how many people commented, engaged with my content? Those are metrics in the social media world. Also, too, just from a, you know, digital footprint perspective, what makes the biggest impact tied to your name and your reputation that exists out there? Is it an article that you were in the New York Times? Is it a feature? Is it a press release you got mentioned in? Is it your LinkedIn profile, et cetera? So pay attention to how things rank, because Google algorithms change. And I noticed another reporter popped up with my name. So, there are other people that also have your name too. So I would even consider like buying your URL on GoDaddy, and like I own lindsaycarnett.com. Because I don't want somebody else to take it, because ultimately there will be another Lindsay Carnett out there, and who knows who they are. So I think to own your personal brand, with social media channels and a URL and the alerts, it is really important. Like, stake your territory. It's your real estate. It's your name. It's your personal brand, and you need to protect it.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that everybody in DLC does as well. And I know that I'm always available. I love mentoring. I love giving advice to especially women founders, not that I don't enjoy giving them to men as well. And having been in business for a number of years in various capacities, from corporate to entrepreneurial, I can always be reached out. Anybody can reach out to me and ask my advice on how they can get ahead in terms of their entrepreneurial career. How about you, Lindsay?
Likewise, I sit on a few advisory boards. One is for the UC Santa Barbara Extension Program. As an advisor there, also the Public Relations Student Society of America for my alma mater. But I also love mentoring others, and I would be happy to be a resource. That's my background and where I usually get tapped for ideas.
So I think that we can then say goodbye.